Welcome all to the 27th of June 2022 Council meeting. I open the meeting at 7:03 p.m. My name is Councillor Elizabeth Neely and I'm the Mayor of Banyule City Council. Tonight's Council meeting is very significant as those that are present can see that this Council meeting is being held at the Ivanhoe Library and Cultural Hub, also known as ILCH. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome our Banyule community, those present here this evening, and also those watching the live stream, to the Nellie Ibbott Chambers at our Ivanhoe Library and Cultural Hub. We've been working towards a return here for some time, taking into account the new technology and processes. It is wonderful to be back. We've all been really excited to be here and have members of the public in this lovely space. I will now pass on to the Director of Corporate Services, who will read out the formalities to tonight's meeting.
Thank you and welcome all. This is an ordinary meeting of Council. My name is Mark Gillio and I'm the Director of Corporate Services. Tonight I'm speaking on behalf of the CEO Alison Beckwith, who unfortunately is unwell and is an apology for tonight's meeting. Tonight's meeting is being held in person in accordance with the provision of Council's governance rules and the Local Government Act 2020. This meeting is being live streamed via Council's website and Facebook page. The live stream is not interactive. Any comments or private messages directed to us while the stream is live will not be presented to Council or have any bearing on the conduct of the meeting. Council's request to speak methods continue to allow participation without having to attend meetings in person. Public participation guidelines. Rules for public participation during the meeting. Please note that any public questions submitted to tonight's Council meeting will be printed in the minutes. Council does not accept questions as part of the request to speak process. No statement must be derogatory, defamatory or directed to an individual councillor, member of staff, ratepayer or member of the public. A 2-minute time applies to all requests to speak. The timer will be used and a warning will sound after 1.5 minute mark and officers will sum up in the last 30 seconds if required for the statements being read out. I'll now introduce councillors in attendance tonight. Firstly, the Mayor, Councillor Elizabeth Neely, Councillor Rick Garotti, Councillor Fiona Mitsonikos, Councillor Alison Champion, Councillor Peter Demorelos, and online we have Councillor Peter Castaldo and Councillor Tom Melican. Councillor Lita McKern and Councillor Dee Pasquale are apologies tonight. Unfortunately, due to illnesses, a portion of our councillors and executives are unable to attend tonight and we wish them each a speedy recovery. Councillor McKern would like me to read some special words on behalf of her about return to council meetings at Ivanhoe, as she is unable to attend tonight. Fellow councillors, staff and Banyule residents, as a Charlesworth Ward councillor, I wish to express how pleased I am that this evening's ordinary meeting of council is being held at Ivanhoe Library and Cultural Hub. It's been a couple of years since council meetings were relocated to Greensborough to satisfy COVID social distancing requirements. It's good to be back and I'm sorry I'm not there to participate on this occasion. I wish you all the best for a productive meeting. This evening, we are also joined by Banyule City Council directors. We have Natasha Swan, who's the Director of City Development, Michael Tanner, Manager of Parks and Natural Environment, who's filling in for Darren Bennett, and we have Kath Brackett, Director of Community Wellbeing, as well as members of Banyule's governance team, so Gina Burden, Manager of Corporate Governance and Communications, Kristen Fort, Governance Coordinator. Also tonight we're supporting the council are members of the IT team and our JETS team coordinating our live stream this evening. We thank you for participating in the meeting tonight and being part of the momentous return to Ivanhoe and this fabulous facility. Back to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director. Our meeting is being held on the traditional land of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people, and on behalf of Banyule City Council, I acknowledge them as the traditional custodians. I would also like to pay my respects to Wurundjeri Woiwurrung elders, past, present and emerging, and to acknowledge other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Elders joining us today. Council is committed to and values diversity within our community. I will now read Banyul's diversity statement that demonstrates our commitment. Our community is made up of diverse cultures, beliefs, abilities, bodies, sexualities, ages and genders. We are committed to access, equity, participation and rights for everyone, principles which empower, foster harmony and increase the well-being of an inclusive community. Moving on up to apologies. We have two apologies, Councillor Alida McKern and Councillor Mark De Pasquale. Confirmation of the minutes for the ordinary council meeting held on the 30th of May 2022. Can I please have a councillor to move and second? Moved, Councillor De Morelos, seconded Councillor Mitsonikos. I now put the motion. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Disclosures of interest, councillors. As required at any other meeting of council, councillors must declare a conflict of interest at the start of the meeting and at the end of the meeting when the item is presented to council. Councillors will be required to leave the meeting and return when the item has been resolved. At any point throughout the meeting, if any other councillor recognises that they have a general or material interest, they can flag that at any point or follow the same procedure. Are there any disclosures of interest this evening? No? There are no disclosures. Officers, disclosure of interest. Officers that are present, I now ask whether you have a conflict of interest in any items presented before council. No? Thank you. Okay, we're going to move straight to a procedural motion. We have two items that are before council that relate to parklets on Upper Heidelberg Road. And these items are Agenda 2.1, petition relating to parklets on Upper Heidelberg Road, and Agenda Item 7.1, officer report relating to temporary outdoor dining parklets and pop-up program. So through our public participation avenues, council have received a number of requests to speak on both of these items, and as these items relate to one another, it is proposed for the benefit that we, and to those attending tonight, that we reorder the agenda. So 2.1 and 7.1 can be deliberated on one after the other. So as such, I'm searching for a motion from a councillor colleagues to move a procedural motion to reorder the business as listed as per Part C 18 of the Council Governance Rules. So,
yep, I'm happy to move.
Yep, so move as follows. Thank you, Councillor. The Council resolved to reorder the agenda item after 2.1 for consideration to 7.1, with business to resume as per the agenda from item 5.1 onwards. Thank you, Councillor Garotti. So moved. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Champion. So we'll go directly to 2.1. All those in favour? The motion is carried. So 2.1, parklets on Upper Heidelberg Road. There are three speakers for this item. Stavros Ziku Ball will address the council in person. Stavros, please approach the lectern. You will have 2 minutes to speak.
Good evening, councillors. My name is Stavros and I've been the marketing coordinator for the ITA for some 14 years and other shopping centres in Banyule and beyond for 20 years. In my extensive experience, every shopping centre is different, having different needs, challenges and appeals. So the first point I would like to make is when deliberating on all this later on, to consider Ivanhoe individually in its own merits, as we believe this is both the fairest and pragmatic thing to do, not just for Ivanhoe, but all the other precincts also. With our experience, we've also learned to become somewhat experts in the area of parking. Not exactly a fun topic as one can appreciate, but a vital one. On-street parking, such as Upper Heidelberg Road, is what differentiates Ivanhoe from other shopping centres, particularly large box shopping centres such as Westfield and Northland. And that differentiation is based upon convenience, where one can potentially park as close as possible, if not directly outside that particular business. And council recognises this fact, which is why on-street parking restrictions are typically way shorter than off-street. This helps encourage more customer turnover, which is also what small businesses rely on. Each car park, therefore, has a value on it. That value is determined by the number of cars individual parking spots turn over per hour, per day, per year. And these valuable car parks were never designed to be monopolised for any individual businesses, but rather for the clientele of all the businesses in the precinct. Last year's independent consultation data sanctioned by Council stated, and I quote, half the traders located in the surrounding area indicated that parklets had a negative impact on both their numbers and revenue. Let me repeat that. Half the traders near the parklets stated they were financially negatively affected by the parklets. This year's consultation also demonstrated here that parklets were having a negative impact on traders. You have before you tonight a petition showcasing 90 traders, the vast majority of retailers on Upper Heidelberg Road, requesting to not support the extension of parklets on Upper Heidelberg Road beyond June 30th, 2022. We respectfully ask, what other evidence does Council need for the parklets not to be extended in Upper Heidelberg Road in Ivanhoe? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stavros. Zach Silvestro, 4, will address Council in person. Zach, please approach the lectern. Thank you. You will have 2 minutes to speak.
Good evening, councillors. My name is Zach, and I'm both the Treasurer of the Ivanhoe Traders Association and the owner of Coffee Plus of Ivanhoe at Shop 10, 149 Upper Heidelberg Road. Tonight could be the first ever petition that the ITA has ever submitted to Council, underlying how strongly the association feels about this specific topic. I personally went around and collected many of the signatures myself. And even though traders down my southern end of the street are less affected by the parklets from the top end of the street, they could all see and understand the facts made regarding the greater good of the street. The 90 signatures reflects a strong consensus of vast majority of retailers in Ivanhoe. And the three signatories mentioned in the agenda from outside of Banyule are all traders in the street. Just to recap, the 90 signatories, which are all businesses in Ivanhoe, petition or request Council to not support the extension of the parklets on Upper Heidelberg Road beyond June 30th, 2022. This includes the introduction of any new parklets on Upper Heidelberg Road. The main reasons being, these parklets were originally introduced as a temporary measure to COVID restrictions with a definite end on 30 June 2021. There are no COVID restrictions any longer. 2, customer complaints due to the reduction of car parks on Upper Heidelberg Road. Car parks on Upper Heidelberg Road have always been in place to serve all businesses and the entire community, not a select few. Parklets were now causing financial and mental stress to some traders, with customers telling traders they can't find parking nearby, so they move on as a result. This issue has not only demanded much of the association's time and energy for nearly 2 years, but it has also literally divided the street during a 1-in-100-year pandemic. The ITA's role is to unite the street and find common ground, and this has arguably had the opposite effect. Please consider all of this when deciding later tonight on whether or not to remove all the parklets in Ivanhoe. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Zach. The next speaker is John Mihalidis. Against will address Council in person. John, please approach the lectern.
Can I just put this picture just here?
Yes. You.
I'm here to talk about the main reasons for this petition. Point 1, no COVID restrictions. I know there might not be any restrictions about the effects of COVID are still here with us. Personally, I had to close my shop recently for 4 days because my staff had COVID and there was no one else to replace them. Inflation on food products, for example, lettuce $1.50 to $12.50. Petrol is out of control. So the impact of COVID is still here and real. Most importantly, the community still prefers to sit outside. Point 2, customers' complaints due to reduction of car parks. I don't really understand this because in Faye Ballingall's report, the independent survey that was undertaken by the outdoor parklets, only 5% of customers mentioned the loss of car park spaces as a negative outcome. 95% provided overwhelmingly positive feedback. The report also states there are 2,000 public car parks available within this activity centre. The parklet just below us, in front of my shop, is only 5 metres from 350 car spots. public car park on prime Ivanhoe real estate for the community to use. I'm not sure that many strips of this size have the access to public car parking as we have. And point 3, parklets now causing financial mental stress that customers can't find parking nearby. I'm not sure about this when 95% of customers in Faye Ballingall's report voted yes to parklets. It says can't find parking nearby. All these traders here all have 350 car spots in front of their door. There are 2,000 spots nearby in this vicinity. If you have a look at this picture of our parklet, I sacrificed 1 car spot. The donut shop sacrificed 1, and the ice cream shop sacrificed 1, all in front of our own shops to create a community space for people to use. Not sure how we're affecting anyone else. 77% of businesses that were interviewed in the survey say they had a positive or had no impact on their businesses.
John, I'll ask you to sum up.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. That's it.
Thank you. Councillors, there's an officer recommendation in the paper. Can I please have a councillor move a motion? Moved, Councillor Champion. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Garotti. Councillor Champion, would you like to speak to the item? Seconder, would you like to speak to the item? Any other councillors wish to speak? I can't see Peter, but I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. Have we lost a councillor on the screen? Okay. I'll keep going. Oh, you're getting him back. Okay. Thank you. Okay. I'm now moving to item 7.1. Just bear with me. Here we go. Okay. So now we're moving to item 7.1. There are 4 speakers. So temporary outdoor dining parklets and pop-up program. There are 4 speakers on this item. John Michaelides will address again the council in person. Please approach the lectern.
Can I put these 2 up? Sorry. I'm not sure if you guys can see it. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so Banyule Council plan strategy to create distinctive, appealing and thriving shopping centres that have a local identity and contribute to a strong sense of place. When you look at these 2 boards I've put up, you cannot argue that these pictures don't encapsulate all these things. If you didn't know it, you could be in Europe somewhere. The picture there is our parklet. I might be biased, but it's probably the prettiest parklet in the whole of Melbourne. I'm proud of our parklet and I want it to look beautiful and appealing to the whole community. I also want to share with you what I love about our parklet and how it has had a positive impact on the community. I love the fact that girls from the grammar school, the year 11 and 12s, can come to my shop and order a HSP and sit in the parklet. Out of the 7 or 8 girls that come to the shop, only 2 of them will eat something, but we don't mind that because it gives them a place to congregate. I love the fact that the office workers in the area can escape their offices and get some quick takeaway and sit outside to get some fresh air. I love the fact that students can sit there with their laptop and do some homework without having to order anything. I would also love on Mondays when we are closed for the council to utilise the space for whatever events they might need for it. On Bell Street, we have these huge apartments going up with young urban people going to live in them. We need to create these younger people's needs. They want atmosphere, ambience, nightlife, food, drinks, music. So to attract these people to meet Banyule Council's plan strategy, we have to provide all these things for them to want to stay in their local community. I would hate to lose them to High Street, Northcote. So instead of talking about going backwards and getting rid of parklets, the community actually wants to see us do more. We're all servants of the community, myself as a shopkeeper and you as councillors. We're here to serve the wants and needs of the community. That is our primary objective. And so I would like to remind the council that 95% of the community that we serve have said yes to parklets. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Our next speaker is David Zanofsky. Will address the council in person. David, please approach the lectern. You have 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is David Janowski and I'm the President of the ITA and co-owner of Vasco Restaurant Functions of Ivanhoe. As we all know, the main role of a Traders Association is to promote the viability of its shopping strip. The BCC facilitates and funds this exact cause through the special rate scheme. And here we are faced with an issue that squarely goes against this fundamental aim, namely the loss of revenue experienced by multiple businesses because of the removal of car parks to make way for parklets. The loss of business revenue directly linked to a council initiative is as good as a restriction of trade to businesses. We approached our councillor about this issue and were met with resistance. We asked our councillor to engage in further discussion to arrive at possible alternatives to the parklets. We were met with silence. The Banyule City Council Executive intervened and facilitated meetings to open up communication lines between our councillor and us. She became more defiant. Why am I bringing this up? Because an issue as important as this could have been ironed out a long time ago. If only the communication was free-flowing, none of this would need to happen. You have heard hard evidence presented to you tonight and are about to hear more that illustrates beyond any reasonable doubt that businesses are suffering at the hands of these parklets. People's livelihoods are compromised. Families are being put under unnecessary stress. The survey that council officers are hanging their hat on did not include the most important question. Do you still think having the parklets is a good idea, knowing good and well that some businesses are directly losing revenue because of them? This information was available and presented but was ignored. Make no mistake, your vote tonight is a legacy vote. People will remember how you voted tonight. The ITA committee and I have done everything humanly possible to demonstrate the injustice and harm these parklets have created. We implore you to amend the recommendation to remove not one but both parklets indefinitely and shut the door on any more parklets appearing on Upper Heidelberg Road, Ivanhoe, and give all these Ivanhoe businesses back their ability to trade without restriction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David Janofsky. Now a pre-recorded video statement will be played on behalf of Emilio Zinelowski.
Good evening, councillors. My name is Emilio and I'm the owner of the Ivanhoe Tavern Steakhouse, being in that business for the last 17 years. So I've seen around a lot of customers that come in. The general feedback about the parklet is that they are a bit disappointed. They are still around. They would like to be removed in order to park better and have easy access to the shops they want to do the shopping. In my personal opinion, it does affect business. It's not fairly spread it out with all the other businesses for the sake of 10, 20 businesses, while there's about over 60 other businesses in the street. It's disadvantaging in one way or the other. However, the most important thing is the opinion of the public, and I believe they're the customers, they're the one who brings the money. And in order to be fair for everybody, it's time to move on. It's time for these things to be removed. We are not Lygon Street. We are Ivanhoe. We like to keep it simple, close, easy for everybody, and help everybody around. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Another pre-recorded video statement will be played on behalf of David Watt.
Councillors, my name is David Watt, co-owner of the Ivanhoe News Agency at 194 Upper Heidelberg Road, Ivanhoe, and Vice President of the Ivanhoe Traders Association. As part of my role as Vice President, I have spoken directly to over 50 traders at the Ivanhoe Town Hall end of the street. Over 90% of those traders signed our petition to ask the Council not to extend the parklets beyond June 30, 2022. Many of those traders are frustrated that their voices are not being heard. Most are disappointed that the Council or councillors representing them do not cannot understand how these parklets, which have taken away very valuable parking spots, is affecting their businesses in a negative way. For example, my business, like others in the street, relies on short, often quick transactions, whether it be a morning paper from us, a loaf of bread at the bakery, or a takeaway coffee from the numerous cafes. The lack of quality car parking spaces is a deterrent to shopping with us. Many other businesses in Ivanhoe, I am told, it can take one customer transaction to make or break their day. Think clothing, jewellery or shoe shops. I've spoken to many customers who expressed their frustrations and confessed, complained or empathised with us with comments like it was too difficult to park, so made the choice to continue driving, clearly spending their money elsewhere. I've personally heard this over 100 times. It's no joke. Please don't wait till it's too late. Please do not extend the parklets past 30 June 22. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, there's an officer recommendation in the agenda papers. However, I believe that Councillor McKern has put forward a motion for Council to consider tonight. Does the Councillor wish to move this motion?
Yes, Mayor, I'm happy to move the motion, and if it'll appear on a screen, I'll go through it, and it is. So point number 1, the Council note the engagement recommendations report. 2, support the continuation of the parklet program. 3, reduce the collective parklet currently at 187 to 209 Upper Heidelberg Road, Ivanhoe, to 187 to 205 Upper Heidelberg Road. 4, to investigate options for traders to upcycle the unused material for the purpose of outdoor dining. Note the cost estimated associated with shortening this parklet is $5,000. Allocate the required cost for dismantling a section of this parklet. Consider the future possibilities to retain 6 other parklets on an ongoing basis. Support ongoing collaboration with the trader associations, businesses and community to improve placemaking opportunities in activity centres. Point number 8, develop a Banyule parklet policy and design guidelines. 9, approve an extension to the outdoor dining permits, including parklets and footpath training, and waive the permanent fees, approximately $36,050 for the 2022-23 financial year. And point number 10, explore opportunities to replace car parking spaces removed by the installation of the parklets. So moved, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? I'll second the motion. Does the mover wish to speak?
Yeah, look, I'm happy to move this on behalf of Councillor McKern, who I understand in consultation with the Mayor and the Chief Executive and with fellow councillors, including Councillor Malikan, myself, Councillor Peter Castaldo and others, has really looked to balance up the competing requests that are being made by the different traders. So clearly, as a council, we're hearing feedback that for some traders, there's real benefit to the parklets and it's a real opportunity for their business. Through the community engagement process, we've heard that it's very well received by a number of residents and users of the Ivanhoe shopping strip. On the other hand, this evening in particular, we've heard some strong feedback from Ivanhoe traders that have concerns with the parklets and concerns about the impacts for their businesses. And so I suppose what Councillor McKern and what I'm happy to move on her behalf is trying to balance out is those competing demands and to try and find a middle ground and to try and find a solution that will work optimally for residents in this city. And keeping in mind that as a council, we're elected, yes, to represent traders, but we also have a role in representing the whole community and people who want to come in to Ivanhoe and engage and be part of that shopping strip and to immerse themselves in it. So very happy to put this on forward on behalf, and certainly looking for support for the amended resolution as put forward. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. We need to get the balance right here, and we need to support local businesses, traders, with evidence. And evidence for me has been key in this report. We also, as councillors, need to do our due diligence. An external community engagement consultant was appointed to assess that, so someone impartial to this process. To note, we're going to remove some, and that's quite a costly exercise, but it has to be pointed out. The data in this report suggests that, the restrictions have lifted in the community, but businesses are still recovering and the community is still recovering. And there is some comfort as well from the community in these parklets. Some people still are struggling to come back the way they did before COVID happened, and I guess there's some peace that they're out in the fresh air. So that's my point there. Does any other councillor wish to speak?
Councillor Melican, I believe.
Thank you, Councillor Grotty. Councillor Melican.
And as we heard, some people seem to think that. But it's also true that during COVID, many people started working from home, and that will continue. And those people are looking for somewhere to get out of during the day. So instead of going down, if they worked in the city, down to the local cafe or wherever to have lunch, they're now going to their local activity centre. And in many cases, that's Ivanhoe. So we have to recognise that there's been a demographic change, and people are working from home. People are looking for somewhere to go at lunchtime in their local area. And also, if you look at Ivanhoe, there's been an enormous amount of apartments built in there. And those people aren't looking for a car parking spot. They're looking for somewhere to meet their friends and have lunch. And that's what this provides. And there's ample evidence to prove that if someone has to walk 3 or 4 shops to get from their parking spot to get to the shop they want, they're actually going past other businesses that then have an opportunity to attract them into their shop. You park in front of one shop, go in, go out. You're not providing benefit to other members of that shopping strip. If you park at the local car park, and as one of the speakers talked about, the 380 just around the corner, and you walk past several businesses, people are much more likely to shop, spend more money, and spend more time in Ivanhoe. So we do need to get this balance right. I think it's wrong to think if you can't get a spot at the front of my shop, people won't come to your shop. But is it better to have these parklets where people are quite happy to come to Ivanhoe, has that relaxed feel, has that cosmopolitan feel, people come for lunch and stay longer. It will bring more foot traffic to the area. It will bring more foot traffic past all the shops. So I think we should keep these parklets. I can understand why some people might want to see them as losing parking. But if there's a problem with short-term parking and people want more short-term parking, we can change the limits where the parklets aren't currently located. So if they want to increase the turnover outside the news agency, we can make it 15 minutes outside the news agency. We can do those things. But I think to go back and remove these parklets totally would be wrong. We've got to remember we are building our cities for people. We're not building our cities for cars, especially not empty cars. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? No.
I'm happy to sum up on behalf of Councillor McKern. So Councillor McKern wishes to thank everyone who responded to the community engagement activities to collect information on the value of the dining outdoor parklets. Parklets were introduced to help businesses survive the impacts of COVID, impacts of which are still being felt by traders. Council undertook the engagement process to assess the effect of the parklets and provide Council with clear evidence-based recommendations going forward. Notwithstanding the petition received this evening to not support the extension of the parklets in Upper Heidelberg Road, consultation findings show there is considerable support from residents and other traders to retain the outdoor dining parklets. It's important to know that all stakeholders have been listened to. Representatives of the Ivanhoe Traders Association have met with the ward councillor, mayor, council CEO and economic development staff on numerous occasions. As a council, we understand the concern regarding the loss of car parking spaces. It has been heard, but with all points of view being considered in the motion that Councillor McKern has put forward. Thank you, Mayor.
I now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Moving back to our item 5.1, Watsonia Town Square Community Consultation Summary and Preferred Concept Design. There is one speaker on this item. Hesham Mobarek from the Watsonia Traders Association will address council in person. Hesham, please approach the lectern. You will have 2 minutes to speak.
Respected Mayor, councillors, Banual officers and community members present. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight to tonight's recommendations for the Watsonia Town Square. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Hesham Mubarak, President of the Watsonia Traders Association and owner of Pharmacy for Less Watsonia. Watsonia Traders Association has supported the idea of the town square and actively engaged in community reference group over the last year. The idea of the town square has come up many years ago, and we certainly supported it many years ago in the Picture Watsonia. We thank you for facilitating. We thank the council and the officers and the councillors for facilitating such a well-run group that ensured all had the opportunity to voice opinions, provide feedback and be genuinely consulted. Watsonia Traders Association strongly endorses the recommendations, particularly recommendations 9 and 10, to continue the advocacy and investment and activation proposal which was presented to the Victorian State Government for the WTA, and also the negotiations with the Anglican Diocese re the use of the land on 72 Watsonia Road. Without that land, I think the whole idea would take on a completely different meaning of what we've been trying to work for such a long time. Watsonia Traders Association also endorses the recommendation 3, and that is the removal of the High Street roundabout. Obviously, still unfunded, and we strongly encourage its inclusion in upcoming budget considerations. The Watsonia shop owners have just come out of an extremely difficult 28 months of trading to then be hit with unnerving closures and disruptions to our street with the North East Link early works, and then soon the realignment of the Greensborough Road. We see the town square as being part of our recovery and a buffer to the upcoming disruptions. As President, I have to advocate for 70 traders, even if it goes against my own best interests. This is how I've always approached my responsibility. Watsonia Traders Association, however, do not support the recommendation 2 and strongly oppose the relocation of the shared use path. It's only by 6 metres, and also the realignment of the car parks. Recommendation 2 seems to be very counterintuitive, and here we've been hearing about car parking where the town square was going to decrease the car parking by 29 spots by realigning this 6 metres of the shared use pass. It goes up to 41 car spots lost in and near, again, the traders.
Please sum up, Hesham.
Recommendation 2 has come after the community reference group was completed. We believe there wasn't sufficient consultation on this particular recommendation. Even if the High Street roundabout is removed and providing those extra car spots, it's a lot further away. Again, it's a lot more beneficial, obviously, for those who are making appointments, who are long-term people sitting attending the traders. However, not for those who require the quick access in and out.
Okay,
We've got
Hesham,
5 to 7 years.
You have to wrap up, please.
Finish it off?
Yep.
We've got 5 to 7 years ahead of us with some major constructions. We need to get the parking right the first time around, and we feel that last change is going to be detrimental to the Trade Association. Thank you.
Thank you, Hesham. Councillors, there's an officer recommendation in the papers. I'm now calling for a motion.
I'm happy to move a motion, Mayor, but as slightly amended from officers. So point number 1, and it is on the screen for the gallery, terrific. So point number 1 as is, point number 2 as is, point number 3 endorses the inclusion of stage 2, the High Street roundabout removal and additional car parking provision in the upcoming community exhibition phase, and requests a report back on the budget funding implications of the detailed design and construction of stage 2 of the project once available. Point number 4 as is. Point number 5 endorses the creation of additional car parking outside of the project area as part of the detailed design phase, including outside of and adjacent to 65 Watsonia Road, and B, outside of and adjacent to 47 Watsonia Road. And I believe they are all the amendments to the officer recommendation. So happy to put that forward to the group and seeking a seconder.
Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Champion. Does the mover, Councillor Grotti, wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Look, I will raise a couple of comments, and particularly in regard to some of the amendments that we're putting forward. So in point 3, what we're looking to do there is just cement the principle that the High Street roundabout removal and additional car parking provision will be included as part of the overall project. One of the key bits of feedback that we received from the traders and residents in the area was that if you're going to do this project, do it all in one hit. Don't do it over 2 stages. And by calling for a report back once the detailed design's done, rather than waiting for next year's budget, if there are budget implications, we can bring that back to Council for consideration much sooner, and then hopefully facilitate an overall smoother project delivery. So that was a key rationale behind the change there. And then in point 5, it's just a bit firmer language saying that this council will endorse the creation. So really looking just to cement that principle of creating that additional car parking. And, for those that don't know, but outside, adjacent to the chicken shop, opposite to the chicken shop, and where the petrol station is at the moment. Certainly hear the feedback from Hesham Mubarak here tonight on behalf of the Watsonia traders regarding some concerns around point number 2. Point number 2, really those amendments arose from consultation with the Watsonia RSL, and I think that we have to remember that the Watsonia RSL is a major stakeholder in the Watsonia area. They've had them and their members have been of tremendous service to our nation and to our community, and their opinion within the community and to this council carries enormous weight. And so following an overall consultation, Councillor Di Pasquale and I and officers met with the traders, and they proposed some changes to the alignment of the shared use bike path to, instead of running through the car park, in the middle of the car park that would be opposite the RSL and that area of Morwell Avenue, to go on the other side, to go on one side of the car park. And officers and councillors and everyone looked at that suggestion and thought that that's a much safer outcome, safer for the cyclists, safer for the pedestrians. Local member Colin Brooks, state member, he was across that as well. So I think from a number of stakeholders, we looked at that suggestion and thought that that creates a safer option for cyclists and pedestrians. And we recognise that in doing that, there is a loss of car parking. I don't think it's anywhere near the 41 spaces that were quoted by the Speaker. There is a loss, which is why we've then sought to cement in this recommendation the creation of that additional parking. And then also as part of this recommendation to cement the principle that council will look to move forward with stage 2, the High Street roundabout removal and additional car parking as part of the project. Once you factor in those elements, the overall net loss of car parking is somewhere in the vicinity of less than 5 car parking spaces. And so as a council, we've taken the view to accommodate the needs and wants of all the stakeholders, including the RSL. A net loss of 5 parking spaces is a reasonable trade-off.
You're summing up.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Does the seconder wish to speak? Does any other councillor wish to speak? I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 5.2, North East Link Urban Design Landscape Plan. There are no speakers on this item. There is an officer recommendation in the papers. I'm now calling for a motion. Councillor Champion? Move Councillor Champion. Do I have a seconder? Sorry, Councillor Malikan?
Yeah, thank you. I had a slight amendment to this recommendation.
So I'll take that back. I can hear an echo. So move.
I'd like to move
What
with
is the
point 3.
motion?
Move with a point 3 included, including an additional item in the Banyule Council response to the North East Link Urban Design and Landscape Plan that after point 20, requesting traffic modelling demonstrating that changes to the Manningham interchange won't change the expected reduction in vehicles and trucks along Rosanna Road as indicated by the environmental effects statement.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder for that amended motion? Councillor Champion. Councillor Malikan, do you wish to speak?
Yes, please. Yeah, there's some good parts about the extension of the tunnel, which is the big uptake from this component of the whole project. But this is only the tunnelling section. The disappointing thing, and as the report talks about, is where the tunnel comes out just north of Yallambee Road. The tunnel exit will be 110 metres wide. That's a massive area, and will be on 3 different levels. So this is an enormous piece of infrastructure that's coming to the middle of Watsonia and will change Watsonia forever. The disappointing part about this is once that piece is approved, and this is what we're basically doing, or we're putting a submission in, but the minister is going to approve this, it really sets out as how the next section from Yallambee Road to where the Western Ring Road starts is built. And there'll be very little possibility to impact that because it needs to meet this section. So just think about it, 110 metre wide, 3-level road interchange in the middle of Watsonia. That's what's coming. And if you judge that by the tunnel at the Mullen Creek tunnels, that's a 3-lane tunnel in each direction. This will be 3-lane tunnel in each direction, and then roads coming in and out as well, and also Greensborough Road on both sides of that as well. So this will be a much bigger piece of infrastructure than the Mullen Creek tunnel exits. And we know how enormous they are. So that is quite a concern. But the worrying thing is that once that's done, then the way it then progresses can't be changed. So this will be a massive divide between Watsonia forever. And the other thing we talked about, and failed to address it, is they're planning to build this shared user path, but they're bringing it on where the interchange is at Strathallan Road, but they're bringing it on the roadside. So if you're a pedestrian or cyclist, you're coming down, you're going to have to press 3 sets of lights to get across the road, instead of bringing it around the other side where there would be no interruption to the traffic flow and no interruption to the people walking or cycling. So I can't understand why they don't do that. But the other big, and why I put this amendment forward, is as we've learnt, the interchange at Manningham Road has now been redesigned and reduced significantly so that there'll be no people in Bulleen or Templestowe will not be able to enter the North East Link at Manningham Road to go north. So what that means to Rosanna Road residents is the traffic reductions that were promised as part of the environmental effects statement will not materialise, because all the cars heading north from Bulleen and Templestowe will be on Rosanna Road, not in the North East Link. And the other really disappointing part about this is, as we learned when we went through the Fitzsimmons Road roundabout debacle, which in my opinion was an absolute disgrace, during the EES process, the North East Link people promised us all these traffic reductions and all the roads all around Banyule. And one of the significant reductions was Fitzsimmons Lane. And yet when they come to the Fitzsimmons Lane roundabout, we're told that there's going to be an increase in traffic on Fitzsimmons Lane once the North East Link's open. And we asked the question, how do you come to that conclusion? And the response we got from Vic Roads and the Fitzsimmons Road roundabout people, we used a different modelling technique. So we have the North East Link saying,
Tom.
so they use whatever modelling technique they like to get the answer they want, is basically the outcome of those consultations. So really concerned that this thing's going to be bigger than people are anticipating, and it's not going to provide the benefits that we were promised.
Thank you, councillor. Does the seconder wish to speak? Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Mitsonikos.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I also agree with what Councillor Melican has said, and yeah, I also have the same concerns about the shared user path with bicycles and kids walking down there. It's going to stop traffic, but it's also, you know, potentially could be dangerous for people crossing. I've also, obviously being in the Hordern ward, I have a lot of residents who are impacted by this, and I have some Ulambi residents who are concerned about the proposed bridges that I haven't seen it marked anywhere, but they've been told that there's a little bridge that's going to be now going right into their court. 4 of the houses within their court have been bought out, so they've lost a little community there. And yeah, now they're being told that it's going to be a bit of a thoroughfare, and it doesn't look like it's a great place to put it. It should be back where it originally was, which is what they've asked for it to be, down Colleen Street, which then obviously heads straight up towards 7-Eleven and the bus stop. But yeah, there's a few residents who just feel like they aren't being listened to by NELP, so that is obviously a big concern. Thanks.
Thank you, councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 6.1, adoption of the 10-year asset plan. There are no speakers on this item. There's an officer recommendation in the papers. I'm now calling for a motion. Councillor Garotti. We've got no alternate thing tonight. That's good. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Champion. Councillor Garotti, do you wish to speak?
Just a note to thank Darren and his team for the report and for the very good work that's being done by that department. So, Darren, you're not here tonight, but we really appreciate the work you're doing and how you've taken the team, and it's a very good quality report. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Does the seconder wish to speak? Does any other councillor wish to speak? Just checking remotely. No one here. This is a very important plan, and its key elements are involved for sustainability and effectively manage council's assets. And it's here for forward strategic asset management planning. It's a requirement, and it provides financial forecasts in managing our assets, like our roads, our footpaths, parks, open spaces, buildings, bridges, and even stormwater drainage. So, very important plan. Happy to accept this tonight. Put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 8.1, proposed budget declarations of interest. There are no speakers on this item. There is an officer's recommendation in the papers. I will call on councillors to please disclose any conflict of interest in the proposed budget, which is to be considered in item 8.2. 8.3. Are there any disclosures of interest, councillors? No. Can I please have a councillor move a motion that there were no conflicts of interest in the budget disclosed? Moved, Councillor de Morelos. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Mitsonikos. Councillor de Morelos, do you wish to speak? Councillor Mitsonikos? Does any other councillor wish to speak? I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 8.2. Am I on the right one now? Adoption of the Year 2 Annual Action Plan. There are no speakers on this item. There's an officer recommendation in the papers. Can I please have a councillor move? Moved, Councillor Garotti. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor de Morelos. Councillor Garotti, do you wish to speak? Councillor de Morelos, do you wish to speak? Does any other councillor wish to speak? I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? We're all voting? Yep. It is carried. Item 8.3, adoption of financial plan. There's an officer recommendation in the papers. Can I please have a councillor move? Moved, Councillor Garotti. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor de Morelos. Does the mover wish to speak?
I don't necessarily wish to speak, but I do have a question on notice actually for appropriate officer. Just given the time from when Council adopted the draft long-term financial plan and some of the indicators or assumptions that are in there, particularly with things like inflation and interest rates, just wondering what due diligence has been undertaken to sense check those assumptions in terms of the final plan that's being presented to Council. So that's a question for the appropriate officer.
Director Gilio.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. That's correct. There's been a number of significant movements in things like in our assumptions since the first plan was drafted. However, we'll keep an eye on those. We haven't been able to include them in the revised financial plan, but given that the financial plan is a document that comes to Council every year, we'll look at revising those assumptions once they start to be a bit more stable. For example, things like inflation, etc., which obviously is much higher than what we anticipated. However, we still think in the longer term that it will even out with the rates in line with the Reserve Bank Australia's target rates. But there's certainly an opportunity to update on an annual basis.
Thank you. No further comments. Does the seconder wish to speak? Does any other councillor wish to speak? I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 8.4, adoption of the Revenue and Rating Plan. There are 4 speakers on this item. Melissa Murphy-Webster will address Council in person. Melissa, please approach the lectern. You will have 2 minutes to speak.
For 50,000 new plastic bins and caddies. Now, the waste charge will be split into the rates invoice. Although when we asked about this being split through households through a petition 2 months ago or 2 meetings ago, we told that this wouldn't be able to happen. And we've also learnt that the amount's going to actually increase based on the property value. We want to know, why is there no effort to cut financial waste before slogging residents with more taxes, especially as we enter a recession? You're talking about cost of living's rising. We've had 5% increase in the first 3 months of this year. Surely an audit on the expenditure could cut the financial fat. First, I would place, seriously, marketing and the way that you spend money on the types of pamphlets that are sent out. The weight of the paper is heavy and expensive. Then on other things like the footpath replacements that I've noticed recently, as a person that has OCD, I do not step on cracks. I assure you, I know which paths needed to be replaced, and the amount of path work that was done was incredibly excessive, and I don't think it was needed to be done. We also see a lot of unnecessary events that seem to be put in place in favour of expenditure of money. So it would be interesting to see what comes from the Victoria Auditor General Office, as they seem to have Banyule on the top of their list for fraud and corruption in regards to local government procurement. We were told in a video the bins were replaced as part of standardisation of the lead colours. Many of us now suspect the bins were replaced to put in tracking devices as part of the Safe City deal to become Internet of Things. We saw no effort by Banyule to notify the residents of these devices, the data that Banyule would sell about us and the costs of running it. This is a complete betrayal to the residents of Banyule, and as far as I can tell, Banyule can be fined $186,000 for contravening the Service Device Act, and the management and anyone knowing authorised devices are used $37,000 each, or 2 years imprisonment for each of the offences. What's Council's intention with regards to these devices? I do not consent to you collecting my data. I did not consent to the Safe City deal. I do not consent to placement of devices of tracking on my property.
Please sum up, Melissa.
I do not consent to taxes, more taxes, especially from a department not recognised under the Constitution.
Thank you. A written statement will now be read on behalf of Robin Hislop by Natasha Swan, Director of City Development.
Thank you, Mayor. Reading tonight on behalf of Robin Hislop. While I support the separation of curbside waste rates into a standalone levy so that future costs can be better managed by Council, the end goal should always be to drive down overall waste volume. Linking curbside waste rates to property value does not incentivise waste reduction. Waste rates should be linked to a user pay system where all properties are charged the same rate for the same bin volume and service regardless of property size or value, and those residents that require larger or additional waste services should opt in for larger bins to facilitate this. This incentivises waste reduction at the individual residence level, promoting on-site composting, soft plastic recycling, e-waste recycling and other reuse and recycling services that help to drive down curbside landfill. Thank you.
Thank you. Another written statement will be read on behalf of Lauren Taylor by Kath Brackett, Director of Community Wellbeing.
Thank you, Mayor. The proposal by Council to exclude waste collection from our rates is very concerning and appears to be an attempt at sidestepping the rate cap while revenue raising without consideration for the environment. Property value is not a good indicator of waste generation, nor does it influence its cost of disposal. It costs the same for the council to dispose of rubbish regardless of property value. Should a separate charge be introduced, at the very least the cost of waste disposal should be equally divided amongst homeowners. I fear that the council are actually motivated to introduce a separate rates charge because excluding this charge from the rates will leave future increases in waste collection fees unregulated by the rate cap, allowing the council to on-charge whatever costs they incur and forcing residents to pay without an option to opt out should they find a more cost-effective waste collection service or not require a service such as FOGO for those who home compost. While I object to the exclusion of weight charges from the rates, if we have to charge separately for waste collection, to do so based on property value is a missed opportunity to incentivise waste reduction. It is staggering when there is so much focus on the environment, the council is not taking the opportunity to encourage waste reduction. A separate charge based on actual usage could have real environmental merit. While council claim that they are unable to track usage sufficiently to implement such a charge based on volume disposed, the fee could be calculated based on the frequency of collection or bin size. Bin collection could occur fortnightly for those who want to pay for it and monthly for households looking for a reduced fee. Alternatively, those with less waste could return to the previous size bin collected fortnightly, or we could get rid of the ridiculously large red-lidded rubbish bins that have been recently forced upon us without consultation. Come on, Banyule, we can do better.
Thank you. A written statement will now be read on behalf of Anna Duranti by Michael Tanner, Manager of Parks and Natural Environment.
Thank you, Mayor. Speaking to agenda item 8.4, I don't think sufficient advertising was done to make people aware of these changes. All households are impacted and each household should have been directly notified of the proposed changes and offered the opportunity to have a say. How is it possible that you can itemise waste rates separate from general rates, but in a recent petition put to Council requesting an itemising of our rates, it was deemed something you couldn't do? Seems you can only do it when it's a benefit to you. I disagree with your proposal to set waste rates based purely on property value. You can have a lesser valued property with a large family produce significantly more waste than a higher valued property with only 1 or 2 persons needing their bins emptied far less often. This seems unreasonable and does nothing to incentivise household waste reduction. So what is the real goal here? Your rationale behind this revised model is increasing waste costs. Given this, I would like to know how much of the increased waste costs can be attributed to the installation of tracking devices into the lids of each new bin, as well as the technology to support it. Would also like information on how you intend to use it, and the provision of a caddy bin to every household and the fact that several have been spotted or photographed dumped in the streets. Did you consider asking households if they needed or wanted one before wastefully generating more landfill at our expense?
Thank you, Michael. Councillor Mitsonikos.
Thanks, Mayor. I've just got a question that there's been a lot of residents who've been asking why can't we just weigh the bins, obviously with the chips in them, and pay according. There's a lot of people who are trying to reduce their waste. Is this something that we can answer tonight?
Thank you, Councillor. I think
Through you, Mayor.
Michael, yep.
Acknowledging that the vast majority of the cost of collecting bins from the curbside is fixed costs. Those would be considered to be the cost of the bin, labour to drive trucks to collect the bins, the lift of the bin and the processing cost. The actual weight of general waste collected at the curbside is actually quite a marginal cost, and it doesn't vary much from bin to bin. It also has the potential risk of incentivising people using somebody else's bin to put their household rubbish in. So households would need to look at putting a lock or something on their bin, and also incentivising illegal dumping.
Thank you for that explanation. Councillors, there's an officer recommendation in the papers. Can I have a councillor move the motion? Moved. Sorry, another question.
I might have had a question.
Thank you. Sorry, I wasn't looking up there.
Thank you,
Councillor
Mayor.
Castaldo.
Look, I have a question for the relevant director around what information will be gathered as a consequence of the chipping of the bins, and what's its purpose for inclusion on our bins, please.
I think the manager. Michael.
Through you, Mayor. The chip referred to is an RFID chip. It's read by the existing technology, which is the waste track system. The primary purpose of that RFID is just to identify a bin on a lift that can be helped to use to identify if that bin's got contaminated general waste in it. So there are cameras within the chute on the bin, and each time a bin is picked up, the operator is looking at the contents of the bin simply to identify whether or not those contents are contaminated. It poses significant risk and cost to council to have contaminated waste picked up at a curbside and go through the general processing facility. It can contaminate an entire load, so that's a cost that council wants to avoid. The purpose for that simply would be to be able to go back to that particular property and have a conversation with them about education. So it's for no other reason other than to identify bins and prevent contamination of loads.
Thank you.
Okay. And thank you. No more questions? So I'm asking for a councillor to move. Moved, Councillor Grotti. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Champion. Councillor Grotti.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Look, I'm happy to move per the officer recommendation in favour of the proposed revenue and rating plan for the coming financial year. Look, the key overall driver for the move was the fact that we have multi-unit developments that have effectively been paying twice for a service, so for the council collection and then they have to privately engage a contractor for the service. As a council, we've recognised now, or through this, that it's fair to only really pay once for a service that you receive, and most other councils have moved this way for a long time ago. Banyule retained the current structure up until now, so that's the driver. In terms of the mechanism, then we've decided to do it through a rate rather than a charge, because your general all other rates are based on the value of property. So it's a consistency with the current approach. So very simple. Driver, equity for multi-unit developments, principal approach based on property rates, which is how every other rate is levied in this city. Looking for support, this feeds into our budget and feeds into our financial plan. There's a whole range of other questions that have been raised tonight about looking at cost of council services and savings that can be made in things. There's other items called the budget where that input would be very well received and appreciated. A lot of discussion around the cost of services, state government levies, state government charges. Once again, that comes through the budget. And we'll be getting a presentation this evening from our Director of Corporate Services on the budget. And as councillors, we'll be talking to that budget as well and talking to the things that we're trying to do to minimise costs here while delivering good quality services and to try and keep the rate that the ratepayer does as low as possible. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Does the seconder wish to speak? Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Castaldo.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I'd like to first thank some of the speakers this evening. You've raised some important issues that we as a group of councillors have debated over some time. And I do agree with and a couple of you this evening around this, that there should be a standard waste charge and not a waste rate for environmental and equity reasons. I have been advocating for this approach along with Councillor McKern, but we did not receive the support needed to adopt this method. And tonight we find the rate coming forward. And while this isn't the preferred method of choice for all, there is another very key important reason, and that was highlighted by Councillor Garotti for multi-unit developments. And this has become an ever-increasing number of residents in Banyule, with significant numbers I know in my ward and Councillor McKern's and across Banyule that have been impacted by the doubled cost of waste. So for this reason, despite the shortcomings of the approach of a rate, I am comfortable to support this as a whole package and I will be voting for this evening. I'd also like to just highlight that the chipping of bins is to deliver a good service and reduce cost to council and improve environmental outcomes, as identified there by Director Stand-in Michael Tanner. It is to assist us into reduced contamination, which last year we received a bill for $1 million because there was over-contamination. I think we negotiated that down to $500,000 at the end of discussions, but it is a significant cost to all residents. And for a number of years, we've planned on how can we best to reduce risk of contamination. And this is one of the very good reasons for the chipping. No sinister reason for putting these on the bins. And I am very supportive of us moving forward, and thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Malikan.
Thank you. There's some good points made by the speakers, and we should always be looking at ways to incentivise waste reduction. And I think going to Fargo gives that the best opportunity we have, because it provides every resident that has a green bin the opportunity to recycle food and food scraps on a weekly basis. And that's certainly, if you look at all the cost estimates, you look at all the reports, 40% of what's in the current landfill bins is food scraps, 40%. So by providing a method where people can put that in a green bin and it gets recycled is not only better use of those resources, it also saves an enormous amount on landfill levies. And I take it on board about people talking about we should be providing incentives to people to reduce their waste. Well, that's perfectly correct. But then the landfill levy is based on weight. It's not based on size. So some people could put very little, only a half fill their landfill bin. And if it's bricks, it costs a lot more to dispose of than someone that might fill it with rags. So it's a very complex argument, but we do need to find ways to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to send less to landfill. And that's what FOGO does. So that's why I'll support tonight. And I'll also take a bit of exception. Banyule Council is one of the highest rated councils in Victoria. Our integrity, our honesty, our accounts are always presented to FOGO. We always get the highest response. This council has never been brought under question by any of those authorities. So I reject that totally. So I'll have more discussion about the rates later on, or the actual budget, because this feeds into the budget. But I think this is a very good step forward. I support the waste rate. You know, your property value determines how much rates you pay. I think it's fair to, when you separate the waste out, that continues. You pay your tax on how much money you earn. Like, that's the way the world is. And if we were to say, okay, we're going to have a waste rate so everyone pays the same amount, the outcome of that would be the people in the larger, more expensive properties in Banyule would actually pay less, and the people in the less valuable properties would pay more. That would be the outcome if we had a flat rate. That's why I would not support that.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Yeah, there's a lot at play here with this this rating structure, and we're talking about what's fair. We're talking about the environment. We're talking about the cost to council. So, council has to deal with the ongoing increases in landfill levies. We have to do that, and just to mention also the new service rates, they highlight the need for council to address waste, because this is the process that's been undertaken across all the councils. We're one of the last. There's a few left. There may be even a couple left. 2, 3. I'm close to the right amount. This also will affect every household. It's a very big change for Banyule this year, and where councillors have been debating, agonising, and trying to come up with the best solution. There is a strong desire from the community, even listening tonight, to reduce waste. And this progressive rating system is about equity, and it's about spreading that equity across to all households. So, you know, this is one of the many services we deliver. We must get this right. I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Okay, I didn't see his hand. You did. Okay, sorry. My apologies. Okay. Adoption of the Rates Financial Hardship Assistance Policy, item 8.5. There are no speakers on this item. I'm just waiting for quiet. There's an officer recommendation in the papers. Can I please have a councillor move a motion? Move, Councillor Grotti. Do I have a seconder?
Sorry, I was moved with some amendments to the officer recommendation.
Oh, more amendments.
Yeah.
Could you please take us through those?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. My night tonight. So, point that 1 as is, that council adopt, or point 1 as is, that council adopt the rates financial hardship policy 2022-23 with the following amendments. Amend section 8, amend section 3.2.5 to say the waivers will be capped at 33% of general rates, curbside rate and public waste rate to a maximum of $500 per year. B, to include a new section entitled Administration of the Policy that includes the following clauses. Council will set a key performance indicator for the time taken for an applicant to complete an application of 60 minutes. Council will ask applicants to provide feedback on the time taken to complete an application, and where the KPI is consistently not being met, officers will report back to Council on options to simplify the application process. Point number 2 as is. Point number 3, just minor clarification that to fund the waivers through the proposed budget 2022-26 with a provision of $250,000 and the remainder of that as is. Point number 4 as is. Point number 5, to receive an ongoing update on the budget cost implications of the waivers in the monthly finance report that's provided to councillors. And point number 6, to receive a report ahead of the 2023-24 budget on the implementation of the Rates Hardship Assistance Policy 2022-23. So moved, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Champion. Councillor Garotti, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Very brief comments. So this council took a real leadership position during COVID to offer standard weights waivers. So that's basically a reduction in the rates of $500 during COVID. We've now, through this policy, taken the view to look at making that a long-term option. And so for people that are doing it hard, for people who have found themselves in unemployment, with mortgages, with children or dependents and families, people that find themselves in that difficult financial position, to be able to make the rates payment. This council's now looking at a policy to give a waiver and an ongoing waiver beyond COVID. Residents will have to apply for that each year, so it's not just a set and forget. A very thorough application process, very thorough audit and control process from Director of Corporate Services and his team. So very conscious of ensuring that it's not misused out there, that it's a policy that's there for people if and when they need it in our community. The amendments there just look to boost up the percentage offered to 33%, but still noting the cap at $500 per year. Just setting a KPI in the policy. So we want to make sure that this is easy as possible for people to apply with. And you can imagine if you're in a financial hardship situation, it's hard to put in an application. It's hard to own up to people that you're doing it tough. We don't want the process to be overly burdensome, so we want to make sure we can track and monitor that and make it as easy as possible for the residents out there. Obviously, with the financial situation we're in as a country and an economy, we just need to keep an eye on the budget and the cost of this, so we're going to get an update every month just to track the costs. And then finally, we'll review it in 1 year and we'll just see how it's travelling. Is it meeting the needs of this council and the community? Can it be improved? Where can it be changed? But I'd just like to say in closing that this is quite groundbreaking within local government. I believe we are potentially the only council now at this point that will be offering such a substantial ongoing waiver to any resident ratepayer that finds themselves in financial hardship. So I think that this is something that we're all really proud of as a council and something that we can do to help people in need in our community, you know, when times can be challenging, as it can happen to any one of us. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Does the seconder wish to speak? Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Melican.
Yeah, I'd agree with Councillor Garotti's assessment. Very true. Some people have found themselves in extreme financial positions, but it's also true that people that are paying rates are often the luckier ones, and it's the people that are renting or are homeless, I think are really the ones we need to make sure are looked after. There are plenty of people doing it at home, doing it very tough for a variety of reasons, who don't own their own homes, who haven't got a mortgage but are trying to pay rent, or in some cases living on the street. So it is very difficult out there at the moment. I know employment's very high, but the cost of living is going up, and people have been priced out of the housing market, and they're the ones that really need protection and really need our care as a community and a society. So we need to keep this balanced. I think this is a very good policy, but we also do need to keep in mind that the ones that really miss out are the ones that don't own a home, that aren't paying rates and are subject to ever-increasing rental demand, and also the ever-increasing rental shortage, which is impacting the whole country. So there is a housing crisis going on. We all know that, and it's getting worse. Hopefully the new government will do something about it. As a council, we're doing what we can, and we're quite prepared to work with state and federal levels of government to increase housing availability and supply, which is the ultimate aim and what we need to do to relieve all these pressures. But happy to support this policy tonight.
Thank you, councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? No, I think this is a proactive approach to, meeting community need, and I'd like to thank the officers for their work on this, and Councillor Garotti for being strong with his views for this policy. I agree with the review, getting the updates. We have to watch this carefully. Again, I've said this a few times tonight, to ensure we're getting the right balance for the municipality. I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Our next item is 8.6, adoption of the Banyule City Council budget. We're going to begin with a presentation from our Director, Mark Gilio.
Thank you, Mayor. As tradition, I present some of the key highlights of the budget for next financial year and the 4 years as well. I guess this budget is one that is still financially sustainable. So as we come out of COVID, we start to move into the operational surplus, which is a key highlight given the challenges of COVID and the impact on Council's budget over the last couple of financial years. But pleased to say that we're moving into an operational surplus of $15 million. However, there's still an underlying deficit we need to watch, but we plan to address that over the next 4 years. The other highlight is obviously the continuation of the capital investment in Council's infrastructure of almost $62 million, whilst maintaining a strong cash position as part of that process, and continuation of the financial sustainable organisation, which then results in healthy VAGO ratios around sustainability. One of the other things that we'd like to highlight for the community is around where the budget is spent, and there was a number of discussion or some comments from the public about that today, and here's where the bulk of the money is spent. And you can see there at the top there of nearly $27 million is on operations, and we talked about waste today, and the waste cost of waste to council being the bulk of the operations facility and also that operations function. Closely followed by community services, so family and community services at nearly $16 million, and healthy and active communities around about $15 million. And then closely followed by expenditure on parks and natural environment and a number of other services that council deliver, which tops nearly or over 100 quality, valued and community services, which we went through and discussed with the community working groups as we developed our key strategic documents for next financial year. Just moving to the next slide, just to give a bit of a snapshot, and people will probably know that the bulk of council's rates and bulk of income is through rates and charges, so no surprise to anyone, but it's not the only income that council generate to to pay for operations or to fund operations. In terms of the highlights and the initiatives, so rates are capped at 1.75, set by the state government for next financial year. We talked about the separation of waste rates as well. It's a feature of the budget, but also the minimisation of fee increases again for next financial year. Understand the impact on the community of those community and family fees that we tried to keep to minimise, but acknowledging that we're still recovering through where most of our impact was on our budget in the previous financial years was around those fees and charges income for those operations that generate income themselves. Moving on to expenditure, obviously an organisation that provides services is going to be predominantly labour-based, but obviously a whole lot of other materials and services that are required to run an organisation of this size. We've been able to secure a sustainable enterprise agreement. Pleased to say that was approved by Fair Work just last week, which is a good outcome for the organisation as well as staff. And also an increased healthy investment in digital transformation and financial systems replacement for next financial year, which you'll see lots of benefits for the community as well as employees. And obviously the implementation of FOGO service, which is commenced on the 4th of July, so next week. So just moving on to the capital investment, and as most the community would be aware or should be aware that Council the custodians of $1.7 billion worth of assets, and obviously that needs a lot of renewal and upgrade on an annual basis. And as I mentioned before, the $62 million capital works program for next year, of that, nearly 92% of that's just on renewal or upgrade of existing assets. And just a bit of a snapshot there where those assets, or where the capital works are on those particular assets. So nearly $28 million on buildings, $16 million on roads, footpaths and bridges, motor vehicles, which is mainly the heavy plant and fleet to operate services, $1.1 million, parks and gardens, $12 million, followed by plant and equipment, drainage and irrigation, playgrounds, and also other assets. And just finally, within some capital budget highlights there with the Rosanna Library for $9 million over the 2 years, Olympic Park Master Plan, Watsonia Town Square, East Ivanhoe Preschool Upgrade, Footpath Replacement Program, Local Road Rehabilitation, and finally the Montmorency Bowling Club Upgrade, which, as you can see, there's some great projects that are going to be delivered next financial year. And thank you, Mayor. That's all I have for tonight.
Thank you to our Director for that presentation. It's nice to have the diagrams really spell out where the money's going. There's an officer recommendation in the paper, councillors. Can I please have a councillor move a motion? I'm looking around the room. Moved, Councillor Malikan. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Grotti. Councillor Malikan.
Yeah, thank you. Most important document of the evening. Has been a difficult budget process, and there is certainly lots of input, and in the vast majority of the submissions we received were for council to spend more money and do more things. No one ever said, and that is getting incredibly difficult. If you have a look, current inflation is 5.1%, expected to grow to 7.5% by the end of the year. The rate cap is 1.75, which was set before Christmas last year when inflation was still under control. And so in less than 12 months, it's going to go from 1.75% expected inflation rates to 7.5%. And in that time, construction costs have gone up to 30 to 40%. Fuel's gone up 30%. The landfill levy alone this year is going up 16%. So these are the costs that are hitting council. And yet we managed to absorb those. We also talked about the parklets, another initiative of this council to try and assist traders and residents. And we're getting on with the major projects. We're going to complete Belfield Community Centre very shortly. We started planning for the Olympic pool redevelopment. We're, as you heard, doing the Rosanna Library. So we're getting ahead with major projects that will set this city up for the future while we're maintaining our parks. And let's face it, our parks and gardens have become under enormous pressure with people being more active locally. And we're supported through COVID-19. So I think under any measure, this council has done extremely well, not just to focus on the immediate response to COVID, but also to continue for the long-term planning for the future of the city. And I think to do that within a 1.75% rate cap is an extraordinary effort. So I'd like to congratulate my fellow councillors on this, the debate we've had. We've had lots of debate. Seems so long ago that we started the budget process, but I think we, as a council, we can be proud that we've supported people through very difficult times. We've supported each other through difficult times, but we've maintained our eye on what we need to do for the long-term future of the council, and we've kept our rates at a reasonable, very reasonable level, but we've maintained the services and we've supported people. I think that's, we can be proud of that. So I'd like to thank Mark and his team for their efforts in guiding us through this very difficult process. But I think it's, when you look at all the submissions, and it's no one's screaming, oh, we don't want this, we don't want that. Everyone was asking us for more. And then a lot of the submissions are actually thanking council for what we have done. So I think if you look at some of the community groups who have supported through COVID crisis, there's much to be proud of in this budget, and I'm very pleased to recommend this to my fellow councillors tonight.
Thank you, councillor. Does the seconder wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just, I think it's largely been said. Great presentation, Mark. So thank you for that on the budget, done every year, and great comments from Councillor Malikan. Just pointing out that we've got debt going up for the first time in a long time, 6 million. But I think that's a TCV loan. So just probably, and we've had conversations, making sure that before we execute, that it is in our interests to do so, given that the cash position is very healthy. We don't need to execute that loan. So, but other than that, that comment, I'm very happy to recommend endorsement of this budget. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? No? Okay. I'll add a few comments. I'll try not to repeat what councillors have said. I agree with my fellow councillors. The important part, this budget has considered public feedback. It's been a very long process and it will meet the community need. I'm confident with that in relation to services, initiatives, programs. There's been, as we keep saying, the financial impacts due to COVID-19, and council has to recover. And the budget, this is a responsible budget, and it provides a good balance of the competing demands that we face as a council between community services and infrastructure, and maintaining our infrastructure, and even providing new infrastructure meeting the needs. So our community also has very high expectations of these things, and we want to deliver those expectations. This budget will hopefully accommodate all of that. I now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 8.7, contract for the provision of parking and traffic enforcement and administration services. There are no speakers on this item. There's an officer recommendation. Councillors, can I please have someone move?
Sorry, Mayor, can I move with a couple of amendments to the officer recommendation?
Take us through. Councillor Garotti.
Thank you, Mayor. So, and it's before us. So, point 1 as is. Point 2, that Council authorise the Director of City Development to sign the contract and any other associated documents for the initial 4-year term. A new point 3, receive a further report on Council's car park enforcement needs, including an evaluation of the outsourced model of service in the first quarter of the 2025-26 financial year, and receive a further report on the contractor's performance after the first term, 4 years, and to consider the award of extensions of this contract. So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Garotti. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Champion. Councillor Garotti, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So This contract for parking and traffic enforcement is actually the largest operating contract that this council will enter into. And so as a council, we think it's prudent then to make sure that the renewal comes back to council. Otherwise, tonight we would be signing off on potentially 7 years, which would mean not only this council, but the next council would not have any input into the contract. So we think it's important from a governance perspective that we bring it back in 4 years. And we also think it's important in that period that we just review the model again. So prior to outsourcing, we had an in-house model. The outsource model delivers very good value for this council in terms of the net contribution, revenue less costs. But we always have to check in on these things because we know that over time, outsource providers can look to increase costs, and the benefits that you originally got from outsourcing a service can evaporate over a 5 or 10 year period. So through this recommendation, we're endorsing it as a council. Well done to Natasha and her team and Jonathan Risby, the manager, but also too, we're putting the contractor on notice to say that this is our biggest contract. As councillors, we're all over it. We're reviewing it. We're across the costs. We're across the revenues. If we see things that are going up, if we see that the value is not there, we will ask our officers to look at what can be done, including bringing it back in-house. So if the tender is watching this evening, that's a notice to you to keep things tight and to continue to run an efficient service on behalf of this council. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Does a seconder wish to speak? Does any other councillor wish to speak? No? Oh, I think Councillor Garotti summed that up very well, and thank you, councillor, for being across the costs and the revenue. I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 8.8, record of councillor meetings. There are no speakers on this item. There's an officer recommendation in the papers. Can I please have a councillor move the motion? Moved, Councillor Mitsonikos. Seconded, Councillor Di Morelos. Councillor Mitsonikos, do you wish to speak? Councillor Di Morelos, do you wish to speak? Does any other councillor wish to speak? I put the motion to a vote. I feel like my head's going left and right. I'm going to get whiplash. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Okay, moving on to general business items. I'm aware of 4 items of general business. We'll start with the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Champion. Refugee Week. Exciting.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Refugee Week is celebrated each year in the 3rd week of June, and Banyule acknowledged this special event on the 22nd of June, attended by Councillor Fiona Mitsonikos and me, with some of our refugees sharing their stories of how they came to Australia and under what circumstances, as well as the impact of the transition from life in their original home country to their new home country. So we learned what this journey is like for them and for their families, and more importantly, how we as their new community have welcomed them or not. Their stories were insightful, and we are blessed to have them contribute to our community's lives and groups in the best way they know how. We heard from the 2019 Victorian Poetry Slam winner from Somalia, the founder of the All Nations cricket team from Pakistan, one of Banyule's Inclusive Employment Program participants 2022 from Syria, and a member of the Montmorency Asylum Seekers Support Group from Canada. This year's theme was healing, and their stories showed us how this process has been significant for them in their integration to their new lives. Part of the healing process for one of our speakers has included volunteering for the benefit of others, and he and his wife have coined the phrase, "Don't give up, give back." Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Champion. We have 2 reports from Councillor Mitsonikos.
Thanks, Mayor. The first one was during Reconciliation Week on the 1st of June. I attended the film screening of the acclaimed Australian film High Ground. It's set mostly at a mission in Arnhem Land in the 1930s, and it blends with both stories and languages from Indigenous nations. I was blown away by this movie. The story of what happened during this time in history taught me things that I'd never been taught at school, and it was a real eye-opener into Australian history. The opening scene depicting a massacre beside a waterhole and massacres at the hands of the police and settlers was tragically common through Northern Australia back then. And to be honest, it was very hard to watch, this side of history. At the end of the movie, we had the film's director, Stephen Johnson, who did a Q&A with the host, Leila Gurawiwi, which was very insightful into the challenges they faced filming in such remote parts of Australia. And with most of the actors actually not being actors, but locals. The jaw-dropping scenery in this movie made me want to hitch up the caravan and go explore our beautiful lands. I'd recommend watching this movie, and yeah, I'll definitely be watching it again. The second event that I attended was at last Monday night. I had the honour of attending the Viewbank Scouts for a Queen Scout presentation. The Queen Scouts Award is the highest award you can earn in the Ventura section, and is the most recognised in the community. It's considered the pinnacle of your scouting at this stage and is a milestone in your scouting life. Glenn Crawford Jr., who we have a picture up on here of, was presented with the Ventura's Section Peak Award, which involved over 300 hours of work to complete, which is actually mind-boggling. That's a lot of time. There were other Venturers who were also invested into the Ventura's unit on Monday night. The night was run by the Ventura's youth, who emceed the proceedings, and of course it was finished with cake, which, you know, all celebratory events should be. Congratulations to Glenn Jr. for all his hard work in achieving his Peak Award. The photo was of Glenn and his father, who also happens to be one of the big scouting leader, Glenn Crawford, and his wife, and Glenn's sister. So, yeah, congratulations. It was a great event to attend. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Our next general business item, Councillor Garotti.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to note that today is the Post-Traumatic Stress Syndrome Awareness Day. And we know in our community, particularly following COVID, that people are suffering from that. So just calling out that there is a day for that, and it is okay to feel that way. Apparently 1 million Australians at any one time are going through that. Reach out if you're feeling that way and need advice and support. We certainly know that COVID has had an impact, and that's lingering within our community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor, for that. As there are no more general business items, we'll move to public questions. Actually, we've received... Oh, there's another general... Sorry, my apologies. Councillor Melican.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to, a general item of business, that Council would like to congratulate former Banyule Councillor and Mayor Colin Brooks, MP, on the promotion into the State Cabinet as the Minister for Child Protection, Family Services, Disability, Aged and Carers. Colin was a serving councillor when I was first elected, and he was very helpful and supportive and explained the workings of council and demonstrated good behaviours and the importance of building relationships with all councillors. He was also very helpful in developing compromises for many difficult decisions and made my introduction into council as easy as possible. I'll always be appreciative for his support during that important and challenging time. Council would also like to congratulate former Banyule Councillor Anthony Carbines on his promotion to the Minister for Police, Minister for Crime Prevention and Minister for Racing. Wish them every success in their new and important roles. We look forward to working with all our local members, and always remember we serve the same communities, and although we don't always agree on matters, we must work together to achieve the best possible results. And another item of business, which is even very bit sad, but tonight's the last night we have the pleasure of the company of Karen Woods, who is leaving Banyule after 16 years of loyal, dedicated service and friendship. Karen has been a very important part of the Banyule team and has always done her best and is always positive and supportive. Her wonderful smile and very pleasant nature will be sadly missed. We wish her all the best in her future career and hopes that she will be a frequent visitor to Banyule, and thank her for a wonderful service. Pity I couldn't be there tonight, Karen, but yeah, we'll miss you greatly.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Karen, too. She's sitting in the room with us. We ended at Ivanhoe. Okay, we have received no public questions for tonight's meeting. In accordance with Section 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020, this meeting will now be closed to members of the public for the consideration of two confidential reports that need to be discussed in a confidential council meeting. Can I please have a councillor move and second for council to close the meeting to members of the public prior to considering confidential items 12.1, outcomes of CEO Employment Matters Committee? So moved. Councillor Mitsonikos, seconded Councillor Champion. I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. The matters have been designated confidential pursuant to Section 3(1)(f) of the Local Government Act 2020. It contains confidential information relating to personal information, being information which, if released, would result in the unreasonable disclosure of information about any person or their personal affairs. The information within the report relates to the employment, remuneration and annual review of the Chief Executive Officer. And I have moved and seconded again. Governance? Again? No. The next ordinary meeting of Council will be held on Monday, the 18th of July 2022. I now close the confidential Council meeting at 8:55 p.m. and thank you very much for your attendance this evening in the gallery, which has been lovely at Ivanhoe, and at home. Thank you for coming.